Canopy MLS members. Thank you for joining me. The Canopy MLS rules and regulations have been updated. In this brief video, you will learn what's changed. Canopy MLS recently revised its rules and regulations to simplify and clarify enforcement policies. The goal of these changes is to increase the members' understanding and acceptance of the rules and to elevate the members' compliance experience. A subcommittee of the Canopy MLS Advisory Group met for several months to provide important input about each area of the rules that needed revisions. Their participation was indispensable. Let's dive right in. A new section 1.12.1 addresses listing manipulation to curtail relisting and misuse of withdrawn status, and unclear verbiage elsewhere in the rules was removed. The listing must reflect the correct status at all times and may not be inactivated through a change of status and then be reactivated to cause the listing to appear as new. The only valid reasons for changing a listing number is the execution of a new listing agreement by a new office or the execution of a new listing agreement on a property by the same brokerage, which is dated following the expiration or withdrawal of the prior agreement. Withdrawn status means the listing contract has been terminated, no longer in force, prior to the expiration of the term of the contract. If the listing agreement has not been terminated, temporarily off-market status should be used instead of withdrawn status. Status change violations are a Category 2 violation and carry an immediate $100 fine. The most frequent MLS violation hearings are about unauthorized removal of keys from the lockbox and unauthorized showings. These sections of the rules were changed for clarity and expanded to provide examples of violations from actual hearings. Spend a good bit of time understanding these rules in the next few slides. Section 2.4 addresses unauthorized removal of keys from lockbox and is not a new rule. You must be the current listing brokerage or have the current listing brokerage's permission to remove keys from the listed property or lockbox. Also, the person opening the lockbox must be the person for whom the appointment was made unless expressly authorized in writing by the listing brokerage. What is new is the list of examples from violations from actual hearings, such as taking the keys to settlement without permission from the current listing brokerage, showing a listed property on behalf of another agent without updating the showing appointment to reflect the change and notifying and obtaining approval of the change from the listing brokerage, performing an inspection on behalf of another inspector without updating the showing appointment to reflect the change and notifying and obtaining approval of the change by the listing brokerage. An infraction of this rule is a Category 3 violation and carries a $500 fine. Section 3.1, Showings and Negotiations, also is not new, but it has been streamlined back to the original rule, which says the cooperating brokerage must arrange appointments for showings and conduct negotiations for the purchase of listed property in Canopy MLS with the listing brokerage, unless the listing brokerage gives permission to show or negotiate directly with the seller, or, after reasonable effort, the cooperating brokerage is unable to contact the listing brokerage. However, the listing brokerage may preclude such direct negotiations by the cooperating brokerage. The note was added that an infraction of this rule is a Category 2 violation and carries a $100 fine. An example of a violation of this rule could be contacting the seller directly without permission to schedule a showing. Section 3.1.1, Unauthorized Access of Property, is a new rule based on MLS Violation Hearing Panel decisions rooted in the previous Section 3.1 and provides examples of violations. Do not attempt to enter into or upon a listed property without express permission prior to the time the seller has provided such authorization. Examples of violations include accidentally showing a property the day before the scheduled appointment, accessing a property outside of the appointed time frame, accessing a property without a confirmed appointment, showing a property at the wrong address, and walking around the property before the scheduled appointment. An infraction of this rule is a Category 3 violation and carries a $500 fine. The section for unauthorized presence of potential buyer at appointment or showing was also once part of Section 3.1, but has been renumbered as a separate section, 3.1.2. If the potential buyer will be present for an appointment or showing, then a licensed real estate agent must also attend, unless express written permission has been granted by the listing brokerage. An infraction of this rule is a Category 3 violation and carries a $500 fine, which is the same as it was before. Section 6.3, Unauthorized Use of the System, was modified as suggested by Canopy MLS Legal Counsel to prohibit use of MLS data by government agencies for the purpose of assessing additional real property back taxes. A list of common Category 1 violations with rule references and links to articles is added based on templates in Listing Data Checker. A Category 1 violation gives you the opportunity to fix the error within 2 business days. If the warning period lapses without the correction, a fine notification is sent along with a $100 fine. If the agent makes the same mistake within the same calendar year, the agent will not get the warning period courtesy. The violation notice will be sent with the $100 fine. The Clear Cooperation late listing violation has changed from a Category 2 violation to a Category 3 violation, and the fine amount has increased to $500. The Board of Directors felt this rule was important and warranted a higher fine. As a reminder, the listing brokerage must input each listing required to be submitted to Canopy MLS after obtaining the seller's signature on the listing agreement and within 1 business day of the effective date, or if applicable, the marketing date, as it is known in North Carolina, or the beginning date of the term of the listing for South Carolina. Also, within 1 business day of marketing a property to the public, the listing brokerage must submit the listing to the MLS for cooperation with other MLS member participants. Since 2021, Canopy MLS requires a hearing after a certain number of violations within a calendar year, which has been effective for addressing chronic violators. For Canopy MLS, that's 10 Category 1 violations or 3 Category 2 or 3 violations. Good news! As a result, Canopy MLS has discontinued fine escalation for Categories 1, 2, and 3. Resetting the repeat violation count on January 1st every year will help staff quickly see when a hearing is needed. However, fine escalation will remain in place for Category 4. On a side note, Canopy MLS has never had a repeat violation of Category 4. Section 8.5.1, Multiple Violations, is a new rule that explains the process followed by MLS compliance staff when staff identify multiple violations of the same offense by the same individual at the same time. A violation or immediate fine notice will be issued for the first violation at the lowest fine amount. Warning notices are issued for the additional violations. In addition to the Canopy MLS Rules and Regulations revisions, most definitions from the rules have been moved to the new Canopy Dictionary that is easy to access. When a defined term appears in the rules, it will appear as a link that can be clicked to open the Canopy Dictionary directly to the definition. Also, the Canopy MLS Board of Directors approved changing the compliance process for listings in 55 and older subdivisions. List agents no longer have to submit the 55 and older Statement of Qualification form on every listing in a 55 and older community. However, the form must be submitted for any 55 and older qualified subdivision that does not appear on the Canopy MLS list of known 55 and older communities, or if there's a concern that a subdivision no longer qualifies as 55 and older. Therefore, updates to this form are now reflected. A link to the article about the Canopy MLS Rules and Regulations revisions is included in the description below the video. If you have questions about the Rules and Regulations revisions or anything else compliance related, contact MLS Compliance.